All right, so we got to talk about today's headline, which is right here. Check this out. It says Cyberpunk sold at 1.6% the pace of December 2020 for the last 15 months. And that sounds very doom and gloom, trust me. But we have something very, very surprising happening right now with Cyberpunk, which changes this entire story. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But I also wanted to talk about a brand new game I recently discovered, so let's take a look. All right, so check this out. So recently I found out about this new game that is also free. It's called Frag Pro Shooter. It's a fast-paced, colorful, energetic mobile shooter with a community of over 100 million players. That is an absolutely staggering number of players. And yes, there is a reason why Frag Pro Shooter is this popular. It's a legit fun game, and there's a wide variety of unique characters to experience and strategies to explore. Let me explain. So in Frag Pro Shooter, you'll have the chance to choose between over 100 playable characters to create a team of 5 in the game. Each one of these characters offers their own unique strengths and weaknesses, so once in a match, you must conquer your enemy's base within 3 minutes, so having a strong deck of characters is vital to success. But what I love about this game is that you can swap between the characters on the fly, positioning offensive characters right where they need to be, and then have your defensive teammates do what they're best at, defending your base. You can even play with a friend in 2 versus 2 mode. Question is, do you think you can make the ultimate team to claim victory? Well, I have something for you to start your journey. Follow the link in the description below to play Frag Pro Shooter and also receive an exclusive new skin in Frag, and you'll even get a legendary card as well. So check it out, and I hope to see you all in Frag Pro Shooter. Follow that link in the description below. By the way, a very special thank you to Frag Pro Shooter for partnering up with me on this video. All right, so we got to get into this headline right here because this seems like very, very bad news, of course. We're going to dissect that article right now, but we're also going to be getting into that story that provides a twist to the Cyberpunk situation, which is always developing. But let's get into the article from Forbes. It goes on to say this: if you want to know why after the coming expansion, CD Projekt Red may be eager to move on from Cyberpunk, you need to look no further than the sales slowdown of the game over the last year and change. Yeah, you know, of course, we have seen that sales slowdown from the game, especially compared to that first month. But check this out. So Cyberpunk put up absolutely massive sales at launch, 13.7 million copies in the first 3 weeks it was out. That is staggering. And it says, but after that, there's a reason we didn't hear any numbers until now, because things slowed way, way down. Boy, did they ever. But again, we got to get into that little twist here in just a moment. It says, but here's the math, so you can see just how much of a slowdown these sales totals represent over the past 15 months since January 2021, after those initial copies were sold. This should be interesting indeed. It says here, Cyberpunk sold 13.7 million copies in its first 3 weeks of release back in December 2020. Of course, you got to remember that Cyberpunk at that time had massive backing because of marketing, and that's one of the reasons why it sold such staggering amounts. Plus, strangely, it had really good reviews considering all the problems it had. Now it says then from January 2021 to April 2022, Cyberpunk sold another 4.3 million copies for the recently announced 18 million total. I'm sure that 4.3 million, they wanted that to be way more. Then it says that equates to just 286,000 copies a month for 15 months. That's a rate of 1.6% of the pace compared to the first month it was released, when it was selling 4.56 million copies a week. And of course, that does make a lot of sense that that would be happening. You had a lot of bad player experience, bad feedback. You didn't have the marketing resources anymore because the game wasn't selling as well because of that bad feedback. So that makes a lot of sense. But we have update 1.5 more recently, which released in February. We have, of course, the next gen update. So things have definitely changed for Cyberpunk. And we can go to the Steam top sellers list for the past week, and guess what is in the top 3? I kid you not, Cyberpunk 2077. This absolutely blew my mind, because also this game is competing with very recent releases, heavy hitters like Elden Ring, Of course, Steam Deck is up there, which I know a lot of people are excited for that one. Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, which has sold very, very well. No Man's Sky is in number 7. That's cool to see. DayZ, Squad, Call of Duty, Black Ops 3, some older games in there. But it's good to see Cyberpunk with such staying power. And I think what's happening right now is some people have experienced Elden Ring, not for the most part, but they're also looking for something else. And perhaps they're venturing into Cyberpunk 2077 finally. And that's there's a breathing space right now between releases, and we're not seeing much releasing, I don't believe, in May. There might be 1 or 2 games, but nothing as big as Elden Ring, of course. Then we could go to, of course, the Steam charts for Cyberpunk 2077. Check this out right here. We have the player numbers, which are actually on an uptrend right now. That also surprised me. We're seeing more interest in Cyberpunk years after its release, and I think people are finally tuning in to update 1.5, and there is word of mouth, I guess, marketing going on right now. Besides, it's interesting in the gaming industry, the Souls franchise was built on that, so I'm curious to see if this uptrend dies off instantly or if this is going to keep going up and up and up. We'll have to see. But let's get back to, of course, the Forbes article right here. It goes on to say this: CD Projekt Red has previously said they wanted to focus on long-term sales of Cyberpunk, but that does not seem to be happening at the level they want to see. Cyberpunk has undergone many major patches, the largest being the upgrade to PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of the game here in early 2022, which was delayed several times, but nothing seems to have caused a large spike in sales until what we just saw, you know, with the most recent week sales totals for, of course, Steam. Now, I'm curious to see what's going on with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. If people are playing on that, please let me know. Shout out in the comments below if you are on consoles, because we do know that it's like 55% of the player base for Cyberpunk is actually PC. So it's a considerably large player amount on PC. Now, the article does go on to say this as well. The difference, of course, is that No Man's Sky kept pumping out massive free updates full of large amounts of content, while Cyberpunk's patches have mostly been bug fixes. This is a great point. The actual additions to the game after 15 months are a handful of guns, cars, outfits, and apartments, but nothing to make the actual game larger. That'll happen with the first DLC, but that's not going to be until sometime in 2023, more than 2 years after the initial release of the game. That does suck. And given that it's that late, I would be surprised to see even that result in some large sales spikes. Now, we'll see what happens with that, of course, because we can look at the Witcher franchise to see how expansions have helped that overall. And it's been incredible. You know, before Cyberpunk released, about a month before Cyberpunk came out, what happened with CD Projekt Red and their sales was that they saw a 13% bump for The Witcher and its expansions. The most important bit with that was and its expansions. So it shows that expansions, when it's bundled together with the game, can give it long-lasting impressions for years and years and years and influence the company. So maybe, just maybe, that could be the potential for Cyberpunk 2077 here. Now, we do have to look at some older quotes that I really did want to talk about. Of course, this one in particular right here says Cyberpunk 2077 to have more DLC than The Witcher 3. Setting is great to sell things in multiplayer. And of course, look at the date. It's September 6th, 2020. These are quotes that are now out of date. We want to hear from CD Projekt Red now. So what did they actually say recently? So this is the transcript from the recent earnings call. They go on to say this: up until now, gamers have purchased over 18 million copies of Cyberpunk globally. Over 55% of these represent PC sales, while PlayStation and Xbox sales account for 27% and 18% respectively. We're fully committed to the Cyberpunk franchise and intend to develop it further. That line right there is so essential in how they're thinking, in my opinion. They did not say we're fully committed to Cyberpunk 2077. That's very important. They said Cyberpunk franchise. So with that being the case, with them developing Unreal Engine 5 right now as basically their graphical platform for the foreseeable future for all games going forward, I think that we will see one expansion at first for Cyberpunk. They'll see how that goes. And from there, they're just going to take it from there. Will we get a second expansion? It's up to basically how well the first expansion, of course, sells. That's going to be really, really important. Now, we got to talk about the work being done now on the existing expansion for Cyberpunk. They go on to say this: in terms of organizational changes, we've introduced the Agile methodology in the game development process. Right now, 17 Agile team members are in place, 10 of which are engaged in developing the Cyberpunk expansion. Again, that is singular, not plural. It says, while the remaining 7 are setting up our eternal core technology center that will serve our future games. Basically, that's saying that they're developing Unreal Engine 5 right now for The Witcher, and I would assume the Cyberpunk sequel. Now, it says the Cyberpunk expansion is being developed largely with the use of the Agile methodology, and we plan to work in the same framework when developing the new game in the Witcher franchise. So right now they are doing parallel development between, I guess you would say, Cyberpunk and of course The Witcher, which is interesting because they're kind of working on 2 different engines. So they're making it work, I have to say. So that's pretty cool to see. So let's finish up this Forbes article. I wanted to comment on some additional things here. It says, I do believe CD Projekt Red is putting a whole lot of work into that DLC, which will be paid, unlike No Man's Sky free updates. We need more free updates, big free updates, by the way. But after that, given how sluggish sales have been after all the fixes so far, it makes sense for CD Projekt Red to move on to both the new Witcher game and future new Cyberpunk games rather than sticking around for more 2077. That sounds really depressing, but in my opinion, if they nail down the first expansion, I'm going to be so happy. When they do expansions, it's like an entire game. So that's what I want them to do right now, is just nail down that big first expansion. But guess what time it is, everyone? It is time to go over your top comments. Remember to leave a comment down below. It could end up in a future video. You never know. All right, so here we go. My most recent video was this one right here. New updates. You won't believe how much money is being spent on post-launch content. And, you know, they're putting aside quite a considerable chunk of money to develop the expansion, updates, and things like that for Cyberpunk. So they haven't given it up yet. The financials are saying as much as well. Now, Austin goes on to say this right here: always tickles me when marketing costs more than development, shows where the priorities are. Yeah, I know. I do wish they had skewed more of their investment towards development costs over marketing. It is what it is. Now, it says Coded Niche says this: with high street cred, entering the Afterlife Club should be an oh crap moment for Mercs. You never hear dialogue like, damn, that's V over there. You kind of just feel like a ghost. Yeah, you know, I really want them to I want them to develop the street cred system a little bit more in the expansion and project what is actually happening so we know what's happening. You know, I don't know how they would do that type of projection to us. Let us know that people are reacting to us either negatively or positively based on our street cred. Let me know if you guys have ideas. I think that's one of the most interesting takes. But I've also seen the other side of the fence where you guys want street cred to remain the same, where it's not as in your face and obvious as what's happening in the game world. So yeah, to each their own. Let me know your take on that one. I'm extremely curious. Now, we have this comment here from Chrome Fox, who says this: I kind of wish the game introduced karma systems, factions, and possibly more depth with assisting in CPD and max tap. I feel like it could have added NPC dialogue where they either are afraid or weary around you or praise you or become more friendly, depending on your choices throughout the game with gangs, police, etc. Really adds more depth to your character's personality and adds more replayability. Absolutely agree. I also don't know how many feel about it, but a gritty and dark NCPD detective story would be incredible. I really love the River storyline. Yeah, so it seems like a lot of you guys want to see more of the investigative type stuff throughout Night City, which I think would be a really, really cool take as well. I myself want to see a full-blown max tech story arc, or perhaps 2 life paths that you could take, Trauma Team or max tech. That's personally what I want to see. I think that would be so cool. That would be a dream come true. But anyway, there it is. The latest happenings around Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you all so much for watching. You know, it's not all doom and gloom for this game. I feel like it's in good shape right now. Yes, they will be working on The Witcher 4. No doubt they're going to have more of the team eventually move over to The Witcher 4. But guess what? I can't wait for that. So I hope they nail that down. I hope they've learned from their mistakes with Cyberpunk 2077 and implement any changes they need to make with the development process for The Witcher, this upcoming Witcher saga. So we'll see what happens. But thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. And I will see you all next time. Take care.